You're now listening to Durian ASEAN, the voice of discovery and sharing.
Welcome to ASEAN BIZ, your only choice for business updates covering ASEAN countries. I'm Andrew Chia.
And I'm Eric Chong.
And together we bring you news on everything that happens around the world that involves ASEAN countries.
In this brand new edition, we bring you 4 segments. The current business update, our Durian main story, funny business moment, and health is wealth. Let us start off with our current business update. Our focus today is on the haze situation affecting ASEAN countries.
Right, Eric. The haze is getting to be a yearly affair, right?
Yeah, without the haze, I think it looks like our Asian regions are facing a 4 seasons regions.
But
with
some
haze
of our
in one
ASEAN
of the
countries are more lucky. They don't get this problem.
Yeah.
Countries like Vietnam, Laos, Cambodia, I believe they don't have this haze problem.
And I believe that the most affected countries are Indonesia, Singapore, and our Malaysia.
Right, exactly. Malaysia is one of the affected countries.
So what's the cause of this haze? It's a yearly affair, and
Right.
it's quite disturbing and quite, I would say, hazardous to our health.
Yes, today we bring our ASEAN countries update. Those countries that do not understand what is haze all about. We'll bring you up to date about this situation, which even CNN News does a coverage on that. It affects the whole world.
Yes,
not
and
only
I believe
ASEAN countries.
recently there's a special documentary done by Discovery or History channels.
Right. So today Eric and I will bring you news like why it's happening, what causes it, and what will be the impact on ASEAN countries as well as other countries in the world.
Yeah, I would say that the main fundamentals of these haze issues is mostly economical.
Right.
And money issues. Okay, so actually haze is a smoke caused by the annual burning of land for the production of pulp, papers, and palm oil on the island of Sumatra in western Indonesia and Borneo.
Right, it's in the island of Sumatra, which is in western Indonesia and also Borneo. That's why it affects the closest countries are Malaysia and Singapore, right?
Yes, and then when they conduct open burning, it's like you are talking about thousands and thousands of acres of land,
right,
to be burnt.
It's all about money.
It's all about money, and why they resort to burning instead of chopping down? Okay, basically I would say that by burning, first thing is
it's much cheaper, right?
Much cheaper, less labor intensive, and after the burning have stopped, those remains will become their fertilizer.
Right.
So this is all about economical value. Okay, the smoke has become so bad, the Indonesian government has declared a state of emergency.
Wow.
In Riau province, on the western side, one of the worst affected area. The area that burns is extremely carbon rich, rising Indonesia's contribution to climate changes.
Right, yes, Eric. We talk about very bad and a state of emergency. How do we measure the badness of this problem?
Okay, mostly what they measure is by the air quality.
Right.
They call the API ratings.
What is the normal reading? Or healthy reading?
Healthy reading, we are looking at about 60, 70. There's
anything below 100.
Anything below 100 is considered acceptable, but of course the lowest the better.
But some people say that anything above 200 is unhealthy. What do you think about that?
It's definitely, because for the past few weeks we have been experiencing very bad smoke.
But in Malaysia, we have never reached 200, right? Seldom.
In fact, last week it had reached about 220.
Wow.
Okay.
That's quite bad.
In KL itself, and caused a lot of outdoor events to be cancelled or postponed.
But it seems that Singapore had it much worse than us.
Yes, because Singapore is been a small country and is closer to Sumatra.
Yeah.
So I would say that whatever wind directions, they are the first one that hits it, and because they are at the tip of the peninsula, so geographical wise, they are the worst hit.
For you guys who are more lucky in other countries, maybe you don't understand what is the problem all about. Let me give you some example. For example, if it's like 200, what happens? Your nose gets itchy.
Your nose get itchy.
Your eyes get watery.
And then
And you actually can't see much.
your throat will become
Dry.
and
people with asthma can actually die.
Yes, and lucky so far we does not have any life-threatening
Schools will be closed if it reaches something like 190 or 200, right?
That's true.
The children cannot go to school in Malaysia and also in Singapore. And I believe the worst is the country itself. And the API reached how high?
Well, recently
300 or
they're
400?
close to 1,000.
Wow! 1,000? Are you crazy?
Yes, and 1,000 is practically your visibility.
You can't see anything, right?
Your visibility is less than a feet or
You can't even see your 5 fingers in front of you.
Well, I would say that we look at the bright side. For the past few days, we have a rain.
Yes, rain helps a lot. But it seems that the wind direction is blowing back the haze all over again back to Malaysia and Singapore
and then
in the next few days.
The weather is cooler, so it gives you a feel like a gloomy London weather.
That's some kind of consolation.
Yes. So those who are not in London, maybe you can have
come over to Malaysia, right?
To
experience London,
but with the smell of burning.
Yes, that burning smell is quite tough also.
Okay. The health implications of breathing in the thick air pollution are severe.
Right, yeah. The clinics will be lining up with a lot of patients.
And then the particles in the pollution can increase the risk of cardiovascular and respiratory diseases and cancer, and more than 3 million people died prematurely each year from prolonged exposure to air pollution.
Eric. And talk about how long this has been going on. For the past 18 years, large pulp and paper and palm oil plantations have farmed the rich peatlands that runs along the Sumatran coast of Indonesia and Borneo Island. So every year, existing farmland is dried out and burned for the next season's crop and to clear the surrounding forests for expansion. The fires are large and hard to control.
And those big-scale companies are also eager to expand their operations into the adjacent peatland.
Right.
Okay.
So they deliberately set the fire, or they can ask other people nearby communities to help them to burn the land.
So
it's all for commercial purposes.
For commercial purpose. Then they start to claim the land. Then they start planting their own things.
Right.
Well, so that's the problem when people does not all for the sake of money.
So I believe Indonesia, the government of Indonesia is setting up strict laws, and if a company is found guilty of clearing land by burning, it can be fined up to 10 billion rupiahs. And that is how much? That is about...
Well, that is almost like close to
$700,000 US.
Close to $700,000 US. We are looking in the region of what? Let's say about 4 million ringgit Malaysia.
Right. Yes. And the management of these companies or businesses can face up to 10 years in jail. So these are the strict laws to make sure people don't continue doing this.
And I truly believe that the law is always there. It's just whether it has been enforced. That's another question.
Right. Of course, there is there's a close relationship between the private sector and the government in terms of corruption. And this is part of the issue that the government needs to seriously tackle. So you see, corruption is always involved when there's a lot of money, right?
Yes, definitely. And when you look at it, it's $700,000 US fine. And you can get your way out of it with maybe half of that. Both parties will be very happy.
Yeah, if you can make lots of millions more than that, just pay a few million and then you can get away. With the jail term and with the fine, and continue to make more money.
And you have more friends in the enforcement agency.
That's bad. Let's not talk about all these corruption problems affecting our countries here.
It only benefited the few business people in a sense. And this kind of scenarios actually affected millions.
Selfishness, isn't it?
Selfishness for the sake of money. And also... I mean, it all boils down to money.
Right, yeah.
Value.
Selfishness is a very serious problem.
Even the law enforcer also boils down to money.
When you go to the extent that you become selfish and ignore the health and life and death of other people. I mean, if we talk about corruption involving, lives of people, we can remember the milk powder scandal in China, right?
China.
Where these guys just want to make money and they make milk powder that can actually kill babies.
And I would say all these people should deserve the death sentence instead.
Right, that's up to the government to decide. Right?
Up to decide that. Actually, death sentence is not very bad options.
Yeah, I mean, if you kill 100 plus or you kill 1 million babies, you should deserve to die, right?
Yes, and what is that for? For the sake of money.
Yeah. So you see, the final solution, in order to really make things work, is to encourage whistleblowers to come forward.
So where can we find all these whistleblowers?
You must have a whistleblower act to protect them.
Okay.
Good souls who are willing to die for a good cause.
Okay, so in a way, either way, the normal citizens are in a fix. Alright, so we shall take a short break now, and we'll be back with our main story for today. Stay tuned, guys, don't go away.
Right. Welcome back. You're listening to ASEAN BIZ, and our Durian main story today is the coming global financial collapse. Wow, that sounds like a fantastic story. But before that,
heavy stuff, man.
Eric is going to share with you, as usual, his funny business moment, and the title of his story today is "It's the Finals."
Right. As we all know, the NBA Finals is the most popular and the most watched games.
People die for it.
Everybody die for it.
They'll sacrifice anything to watch the finals.
And it's difficult to get tickets for the final as well. So in this particular situation, it's the NBA Finals, and the man makes his way to his seat at the center court. Wow, there's a VIP seat. He sits down and notices that the seat next to him is empty. He leans over and asks his neighbors, "Is someone sitting there?" He responds, "No, the seat's empty." The first man exclaimed, "What? Who in the right mind would have a seat like this for the NBA Finals and not use it?" The neighbor responds, "Well, the seat is mine, but my wife passed away, and this is the first NBA Finals we haven't been together." The first man responds, "I'm sorry to hear that. Wasn't there anyone else, a friend or relative, that could take that seat?" The neighbor responds, "No, they are all at the funeral."
Oh, come on, Eric. That's really too much, right?
Yes. So it's the final over the funeral.
Yeah, the wife has just died and he goes and watched the NBA Finals. How sick can they get, right?
That shows how
the finals are more important than anything else.
So they will do anything else to go for the finals.
Right.
Especially when you're a ticket at the center court.
Just like they had this saying in England. I don't know whether you have heard of it before. England is a football crazy country.
Yes.
They say that football is not a matter of life and death. It's more than that.
It's more than that. So what is more than a matter of life and death? Maybe Andrew, you can enlighten our listeners.
That is really crazy. Okay. Right. Thank you, Eric, for that funny business moment. Welcome back to the show. You're listening to ASEAN BIZ, your only choice for business updates covering ASEAN countries. I'm your host, Andrew Chia, and together with me is our co-host,
Eric Chong.
And we bring you business news on everything that happens around the world that involves ASEAN countries.
The title of our Durian main story today is The Coming Global Financial Collapse. Wow, that's something heavy, man.
Yeah, it's something unthinkable. Most people in their life will never think of anything like that. Okay. And it has never happened before in our life. Or not even in their parents' life.
Yes.
Maybe it happened before in their grandparents' life, and it's too long ago to remember.
Who is in their right sense will ever sees that there will be a global financial collapse?
Come on, Eric, are you trying to make a drama out of this show or what? It's something very dramatic, right?
Yes, and as you look at it, no, I mean, the government sectors, the bankers will never see that the financial system can collapse.
Yes.
So what is that, Andrew? Maybe you can just enlighten our listeners.
For a start, let's tell our listeners that this story is brought to us courtesy of CENFIS, the Center for Financial Intelligence, and this is part of their ongoing research into everything that involves money.
Yes, and as time goes on, I think with the global economic crisis at this moment, more and more analysis, more and more stories will come out from CENFIS.
Right, yes, we look forward to that.
Yes.
So our first point today is, what is a coming global financial collapse?
Well, first of all, I'd like to ask you, have you ever heard that the world financial and banking system is about to collapse? It means that the stock market, property markets and banking system will break down.
Wow, that's quite serious and heavy, right?
Yeah.
Talking about the stock market collapse is bad enough.
These three markets collapses, I think we are back to Stone Age.
Yeah, something like that. Really? What will happen then? Has it ever happened before, Eric?
Yes, it happened before in 1929.
Oh, that's a long time ago.
So
what happened at that time?
Overnight, businessmen and investors lost everything, including their pens.
Wow, it's serious to lose your pens, right? Yeah.
Brokers were fished out of the Hudson River by the dozens. People jumped off buildings. Millions were retrenched from factories.
Hold it right there, Eric.
Okay.
Are you serious or not?
I mean, if you look back on history, 1929, they call it the Great Depression.
Yeah, it's the greatest depression.
The greatest depression of all
in the world.
In the modern history. So in 1929, they considered modern history. Now we are closing into 2015.
So you mean these things will happen when you have a stock market, property and banking crash, right? Brokers will jump into the river, people who speculate in the stock market will jump off the buildings, and people who are working very hard for a living in the factories, they'll get retrenched.
And then
what is the government going to do about that?
It's all into
such a serious...
they have to look into the financial systems, how it works, and then they have to put some financial constraints on certain financial tools. The most detrimental part, I think, is the financial derivative.
Right, yes.
Okay, it's like creating money out of thin air.
Yeah, these are all the factors that may cause the financial collapse.
It's part of the factors. And partly also, the whole stock market is overvalued.
Right, correct. So when all these things happen, people will be retrenched and things like that. So when the government sees that such a thing is happening, they are going to do what? Then could feed the people, right? Because the people will be hungry, no food, because no job.
A lot of financial institutions or companies need to be built up by the government.
Right.
Especially those government-linked corporations.
In the previous, what they call it, Great Depression, we see scenes of unemployed people lining up by the hundreds just to get a piece of free bread and a cup of hot coffee. Wow, that sounds like...
Hopefully that scenes will not repeat itself.
Yeah.
Okay, then we can see fast food dishing out burgers.
Yeah. Okay. I don't think they'll give it to you for free. Unless the government pays them something at least. They'll subsidize
on food stamp that time.
Right, yeah. So what else can happen when you have a financial collapse that is global?
First thing first, I would say that the first thing that goes, of course, is the share market.
Right.
Then the financial market.
Property market.
Then the property
construction
market.
Came to a grinding halt, right, in 29.
Construction definitely will come to a halt. And then it all depends on the government, whether they wanted to initiate any big projects.
How about international trade, Eric? What happened during that time to international trade?
Definitely international trade was slows down. Okay, or practically comes to a standstill.
Yeah, it declined sharply and almost came to a standstill. So did personal incomes, tax revenues for the government. Of course, when people can't make money, how are you going to tax them, right?
Right. Then there will be massive withdrawals. Follow the run of the banks.
There will be run on the banks.
Depositors panic. They're afraid that the bank will...
Yeah, a lot of banks closed down actually during that time, right?
Then I think in that situation, a lot of people will hold precious metals.
Yes. And when you're hungry, you can just bite
Bite
the
on
gold
the
or
metal.
silver.
So
And-
you change the gold bar to a loaf of bread. So
And,
I would say those who can survive are those small businesses with good fundamentals that does not overvalue their business, or rather does not depend on any financial aid. Those are the business that can actually survive this.
Right.
And, during those days, 9,000 banks failed and depositors lost 140 billion in deposits. That is
US dollars.
you know. Crime rate shot up and people were living in fear.
Of course, when there's so much unemployment, people will be on the streets trying to steal or rob, isn't it?
Yes, that's true. And that's the last resort, you know. And it happens. It shows in the movie when you put a small community, when resources are scarce and running low.
Right. So,
You will
Eric,
see
you
that
are
one
going to
go
tell
up.
us that this is actually possible and is going to happen. What actually caused that during 1929?
Well, that was the so-called Black Tuesday.
What happened on Black Tuesday?
The whole stock market crashed.
Wow.
Amongst other factors was the very high debt that people owned at that time. And the stock market was making all-time highs every other day.
Wow, it
Most
keeps
stocks
going
were
up.
overvalued by almost 25 times.
Wow. Sounds a bit familiar, right?
It's familiar. I think it's repeating itself. If you
Yeah.
look at the current stocks, and if our listeners remembers our previous 2 episodes, we
Yeah,
talk about
China.
tips, and then we talk about how to calculate the intrinsic value of a company.
Yes, when you calculate that, you find that most companies, almost all companies are
Almost.
overvalued.
Yes, and if you look at the KLSE, I would say KLSE 1,000 over counters.
Right.
And I strongly believe that 1,000 over counters are way overvalued. Right.
At that time, it was 25 times overvalued. And 20 times that is quite a crazy number, right?
At that
If
time, it is. So which means that if they have a $1 par, they're actually valued at $25.
It brings to mind that another piece of research done by Senfis, that was the dot-com bubble in 2000, year 2000.
Year 2000.
The companies at that time, everybody was crazy about dot-com companies, and they were overvalued by 100 times. Can you
Yes.
imagine, Eric?
And how they're overvalued, they're talking about so-called unearned revenue. That is a very
Yes.
good term. How can you have a company that call themselves unearned revenue?
And everybody was still buying stocks because they still
have
thought
this-
it was cheap.
And they still thought that the unearned value is going to be earned. Okay. So-
That actually happens. Recently in China, there was a stock market crash. I believe part of the reason was that a lot of stocks were also overvalued, right?
Yes, and mainly overvalue is because of first thing is the financial derivative, as we mentioned earlier, and also the speculations.
Right.
Those speculators and also the inside traders that
Yeah.
actually boost up the value of the shares to actually build up themselves.
Would you agree that Dow Jones right now is overvalued?
Well, I mean, so is KLSE. It's become a norm for the whole world stock exchange market.
So besides
to be
the stock
overvalued.
market, that's not the only thing that contribute to the whole collapse, right? There are other things, probably the
Like
construction sector,
overborrow, construction
Yeah,
will
yeah.
be overbuilt.
overborrowed and overbuilt.
Yes, overbuilt.
I think overborrowed is very serious. A lot of companies, they owe the banks too much money,
Yes, they call it the gearing ratios.
right? Or leverage.
Right. So and then if guys remember that in October 2013,
Yeah, that was
the
about
US
2 years ago.
the US government actually shut down for a short period.
Yeah, at that time everybody were like panic. Wow,
What
the
will
government
happen?
can shut down. That is also something that you never think about, isn't it?
Yes, and because everybody just take things for granted, that every country's administration must keep on running.
Yeah, of course, it must keep on running.
And they don't anticipate that the administration can be shut down.
because
Countries
the
can go
government had
bankrupt.
no money. And
they-
it seems that the government have been paying all the workers and the military staff, paying for laundry, paying for cleaning services, security services, all on borrowed money.
Yes, and recently I ran to an article. There are governments who have massive funds okay, and they put it on projects for white elephants project just to boost up the economy and construct ghost town. Okay, I think these kind of scenarios are quite popular in China.
Right, yes.
Right, so
it's overbuilt and overborrowed.
Probably I think Samfish is looking into this to bring the next story on board.
Right.
Right, to let you all understand much more deeper why does a country economics can overbuild and why do they overbuild in that sense.
So when you have a thing like a government shutdown, is something very serious, right?
Yes.
I remember Obama had to write a letter to all the government servants to tell them that sorry, the government cannot pay you your salary, and for the time being you guys have to either stop working or slow down the working until we figure out, which means to increase
or
the
you
borrowing.
have a farm yourself, you go back to raise some chickens and plant some
and actually how they actually managed to pay the staff in the end was that they raised the ceiling, right?
Yes, they raised the ceiling
so that they can borrow more money.
They borrow more money
to pay the staff.
And then if I'm not mistaken, during that period they initiated another QE.
Right.
So
print more money to pay.
Print more money to pay. And by printing more money, does that solve any problem? It might not solve the problem.
But you can keep on borrowing to no end, right?
Yeah, to no end.
I remember they did not actually increase the ceiling. They removed the ceiling altogether.
Yes, so that
no
they
won't
ceiling.
Need to go through the hassle of another Congress.
So
approval.
in a way, they are driving a convertible sport car.
So you guys working for the government, you don't need to worry anymore. We will always be able to pay you, whether on borrowed money or on cash.
Or the next they will pay you with food stamps. Okay.
Right, Eric. We have covered a few points so far. That is, what is a global financial collapse, and has it happened before? How it happened, and why did it happen?
And just a reminder, yes, it happened before in 1929.
Yes. And why it happened was over borrowing and stock market overvalue, things like that.
Okay, we will take a short break and be back with our stories shortly. Stay tuned, guys.
Right, we will cover the next two questions like will it happen again, and what we can do to prepare ourselves, especially countries in ASEAN. So guys, we'll take a short break. Don't go away, we'll bring you the rest of the story. Welcome back. You're listening to ASEAN Biz, and our Durian main story today is the coming global financial collapse. But before we continue with the concluding part of our story today, let's take a short break to get a health tip from Eric Chong, our health and fitness coach. Eric is a 100 km marathoner himself, and his health tip story for today is get yourself a fitness buddy.
Okay, Andrew, remember our past two episodes we've been talking about getting started.
Yeah, actually getting started is the most difficult part for anyone, right?
Part for the road to fitness or road to health. And or even just a small exercise, getting started is very tough for a lot of people, especially those in the sedentary lifestyles. Right? But whatever you need, you like it or not, you still need to do some exercise. And how to get started? The best thing is get a fitness friend, okay, a so-called workout buddy.
Yes, that is rather hard to find because if you want to find a couch potato, it's more
than ample oversupply.
There are a lot of supply of couch potatoes.
Right. So a workout buddy is hugely helpful for keeping motivated, but it's important to find someone who will inspire, not discourage. So make a list of all your exercise-loving friends. Okay, don't go for couch potatoes. Okay, hunt out your exercise-loving friends like yours truly.
Thank you.
Okay, then see who fits this criteria. Say a running coach from X6. Okay, as if you guys don't know what is X6, X6 is actually a sports brand that specializes in running shoes.
Yeah, something like the Adidas or Nike, right?
Yes, but they are more specialized on the running arena. Can your pal meet to exercise on a regular basis?
Right.
Is he or she supportive of your goal? I mean, every time you exercise, you got to set a goal, whether you are training for what purpose. for health purpose, for weight loss purpose, or going for your first 5 km run or first 10 km run,
or first 5 push-ups.
Okay, it's still something. And last, will your body be able to keep up with you, or even push your limits in key workouts? What it means that is probably you are too fast. Don't get someone who is too slow for you. Okay,
right.
Always get someone at par or slightly better than yourself. And in this way, you can actually
push each other.
And when the guy who felt that he's slightly better than you and found that you are catching up, he will push himself harder and harder.
You motivate one another.
So don't wait too long. Okay, make a list and start calling your friends and start all this together. So Andrew, have you started?
Right, guys, I'll let our listeners take the lead. Right after this program, please make that phone call.
Yeah, you guys can call me, right? But over this weekend, I will not be in KL. I'll be in Penang doing my Penang 100.
Okay, to get Eric's number, please call me. I'll charge him a small
manager agency commission. Okay, I don't mind.
Right, thanks Eric for that.
Stay healthy.
Wonderful health tip. Yeah, we all need to start on our exercise regime. So let's continue with our Durian main story right now, and our story today is the coming global financial collapse.
During our first part, we were asking, will it happen again?
Right.
Most people either have no idea or do not believe a global financial collapse is possible.
Okay, let's talk about somebody who is very famous. Have you heard of Peter Drucker or not, Eric?
Yes, definitely. Those who are in the management or marketing will not miss his name.
Yeah, or in the business line. This guy actually invented the subject of management. So he just passed away recently, right, in his 90s.
Yes.
Very old man. The most famous business of management writer of all time right now.
Yeah.
Okay. So what happened was, on the eve of Black Tuesday, where the stock market collapsed in 1929, as mentioned by Eric earlier, what Peter Drucker did was, he gave this comment. He said that the economy is great and it is definitely sustainable. It collapsed the very next day.
Yes, and can't help it, sorry, because Peter Drucker started management. He did not start economics and did not start world global financial crisis.
He is a well-respected man who is very aware of the business and economic condition of the whole world.
Yeah, and I believe that during those days, most probably the figures are not so up to date because of the technology involved, and it's difficult for them to crunch any figures.
Yeah, and I believe Peter Drucker never made any more predictions after that.
Yes, and actually to crunch any figures, you got to look at most investors will understand this called the moving average. Right? So moving average depends whether you want to have a 200 points, 100 points moving average. And in this way, if those days the technology are not there, it's difficult for you to gather those up-to-date figures and churn out the moving
Those
average.
days we didn't have technology, we didn't even have much of a television,
and
not to mention the internet,
computers. Right? Yes, and
computers were not invented yet.
And they're just using a very huge machine, massive machines they call the computing machines.
Right.
That's the
And most things are word of mouth.
So it's for them to crunch the figures, get up to date so-called price signal. It's very difficult.
So Eric, if some of our customers, our listeners and our friends do not believe there's anything like global financial collapse, what do you recommend that they do?
Nowadays it's so easy, and with the technology age,
internet
age,
yes.
You can just Google things like global financial collapse or world stock market crash. You will find many famous economists today predicting such an event.
Wow, serious?
We can neither confirm nor deny the accuracy of these statements made by such famous economists.
Yeah, they're so famous, and a lot of them have no private interest or stake in making fear statements like that, what you call prophet of doom, saying the world is going to collapse and things like that.
And frankly, these economists, they are doing it out of passion, just to highlight the situations.
Yeah.
So it's up to you to instill whatever emotions you want on their findings. It can be a fear, or it can be a critical opportunity for certain businesses.
Right. The scary part, Eric, I believe, is that what they say or in their statements and their stories are all based on numbers, whereas what we believe today is all based on sentiment, that people, the world is going to continue forever, things are looking rosy, and the figures supplied by the government are accurate. You know, especially things like unemployment. The government will always tell you there's very low unemployment. GDP figures are great. It's always growing, you know.
Yes. And it's always growing. But let's look at it this way. Every dollar you put out, how much of the percentage is the growth of that dollar? And recent analysis that put it that every dollar that put out in the US market is only 3 cents of growth for the dollar. Right? So can you imagine, every dollar you put out, you are actually growing it with 3% only, that's all. 3 cents is less than 3%.
Okay. Besides GDP, the scary part is seldom mentioned. That is the debt that the governments are owing in the US as well as Europe.
Yes.
You know, the IMF and the World Bank recommended something like 60%, right? We mentioned earlier.
Yes.
In our story on Brexit. You know, government should not owe more than 60%
60 to 80% of
GDP.
their GDP.
And US is more than 100% already, and the average in Europe is also more than 100%.
And on the average in Euro and US, probably we are looking at in the region of about 160%.
Some countries are higher than others.
So in this way, are they following the IMF?
Yeah, none of them can follow. Just like talking about fitness. A lot of people know that it's good to exercise and run around, but everybody likes to be a couch potato.
Once a while, there will be couch potato. They like to be couch potatoes, and because moving the fingers on the remote control is so much easier than moving your legs.
Right. Yeah. So the scary part, Eric, is the interest. I believe America, for example, is paying interest like millions of dollars per minute.
That's
Can
true.
you imagine?
That's true.
You just sit down and become a couch potato. 1 hour after you finish your movie, you are set back by how many $1 million just in interest alone.
Let's bring that down to a smaller scale on a personal basis. Okay, if you do some calculations, the moment you open up your eyes in the morning, okay, you already owes the bank how much of interest.
That is the scary part.
Right? You can just work that backwards. Right? So, what can we do to prepare ourselves in the ASEAN? We've been talking about US, we've been talking about Europe.
Just now we were saying that economists predicted such an event to happen. And of course at Sanfis, they can neither confirm nor deny that these statements are accurate. So what we have to do is to ask ourselves, what if such an event actually happens?
What will happen to our businesses? And what will happen to our financial positions?
Right.
There are certain things we can actually do in order to increase our chances of survival. Is if such an event actually take place.
Yes, that is what we are interested in.
Because everything we can't be looking at such a big pictures. Let's look at to ourselves. Okay, first thing first, keep our debts low.
Right. If there's a global turmoil, our business in ASEAN will be affected. And if your business is to survive, your debts must be low. So if you have, if you are considering expanding your business right now, maybe you are getting a lot of new contracts or new jobs or projects, you can please go ahead, of course. But remember, don't borrow too much.
And always keep a very positive cash flow.
Right. And what do we mean by borrowing too much, Eric? Is there any standard for a company to borrow?
For a company to borrow, I would say to a safe standard is 1:2.
Yeah, that is about 50% of your capital.
50% of your capital. And please, especially those in the construction line.
Yeah.
Okay, their cash flow is, some cash flow are really tight and they really have to move on cash flow.
Yes. If anything happens, I think the property market will be in serious trouble. And if people stop buying properties, okay, or slow down,
this industry will actually hurt the worst.
Yes, it's a matter of timing. if your customers don't buy your property now, they want to buy it, let's say 2 years down the line, can you still hold on to your projects?
Yes, and do we have enough cash flow to sustain?
Yes, number 2 is, of course, number 1 is to keep your debts or leverage low. Number 2, of course, which is related, is to have a lot of cash on standby.
Yes.
They say cash is king, right?
Yes, actually cash is emperor.
Wow. Yeah, I have to agree with that. Cash is emperor when cash is scarce. Not only you can use your cash to buy up things cheap, but your cash actually is for your defense.
Yes.
In case people don't buy your stuff and you still need to pay back your loans to the bank, right?
Yes, that's true, because no matter what, the bank was still there to hawk you.
Right. And any final advice for our listeners
And
in
then
ASEAN?
you've got to revalue your industries. Industries like food and basic necessities will survive great financial turmoil, because people still need to eat, put on clothing, and have a roof over their heads.
Yeah, and they might need to go to school also,
They
the
still
kids.
need to go schools, but they might not be able to afford LV bags, fine dining, and even posh condominiums and luxury cars.
Right.
So the first thing to go is actually luxury items.
Yes. Unlike a nuclear war or a nuclear bomb which wipes up a population within 5 seconds, a financial bomb will take a longer time, maybe
This
5
will
months.
give you a very painful death.
Or at least 5 weeks to wipe out things, So within that time you still need to eat.
It will cut your flesh bit by bit. So that's how torturous is the financial turmoil is.
So that's our advice for our friends in ASEAN. Keep your debts low, have a lot of cash, and make sure you are not in the wrong industry.
Yes,
for
and,
example, making luxury goods and things like that.
A piece of advice: when you re-evaluate your industries, give it a lifespan. I always mention this to my friends who are in business. Every businesses have a lifespan. Give your product a lifespan. Then from there, innovation must come in, changes in the companies must come in.
Right, especially if you are talking about a company called Kodak, right?
Yes.
Whereby the lifespan for film has expired due to new technology.
And because they are so married to their product and married to their technology, they refuse to divorce the story.
Right, that's why some products or businesses can have a longer lifespan. For example, things like Milo or Maggi Mee, you can eat for a very long time.
And,
many
coffee,
decades. Right.
I believe coffee and chocolates have been in the industry for 200-300 years.
Yeah, hundreds of years.
Hundreds of
survive.
years.
That's a good lifespan, Eric, isn't it?
Yes. It's just a matter of branding, and it's just a matter of product quality. So even though your product has certain quality, the lifespan of the quality may be surpassed by your competitors.
Great. All right, folks. That's all the time we have for today. Thank you, and we hope you've enjoyed the show. We'll be back with a brand new story for our Durian main story on ASEAN BIZ in the next edition. Bye for now.